Hi, and welcome to Quadcast. In today's episode, Sarah is joined by Liz Maughn from Empower Mental Health Training and Consultancy to talk about mental health in the workplace, why prevention is vital, and what businesses can do to better support their people and build a culture where people feel valued and heard.
So Liz, thank you ever so much for joining us on Quadcast today. First of all, let's tell our listeners a little bit about your journey and what led you to form Empower Mental Health and Training and Consultancy.
Oh, good morning. It's lovely to be here. Well, a bit of a long story really, but I'll keep it reasonably brief. I mean, I've been in the workplace for, it's coming up for, I'm quite near retirement age, so I've done lots of different things. And I worked in social care for about 40 years. Started off as a social worker, moved into project management and managed a team as well at one point. So I had lots of different roles. And in the end, I got quite burnt out because they were all pretty stressful. Yeah. On top of that, the manager who everybody dreads became my manager. And in the end, I just got to the point where I thought I needed to do something different. So I left. Quite a hard decision to walk away from that. But anyway, I left and had a few years doing odd jobs, bits and bobs here and there, just trying out different things. Inevitably, I ended up working back in social care, firstly as a volunteer and then as a support worker. So really, I fell into mental health training. I went on, whilst I was working in an office, I was asked to go on a mental health first aid course. Went on the course a little bit half-heartedly and thought, do you know what, this is what I want to do. I wish I'd found this years ago. So luckily, a job came up and I was able to apply and get a job as an instructor. So that's how I came to become a mental health trainer. I decided to leave the place I was working then and go freelance because it suited me. I was travelling long distances to work, all the usual pressures that make people decide that they just want to do it their own way. Yeah. And, I wish I'd done it years ago, quite honestly. But anyway, I'm now into soon be in my 7th year, so... I'm really glad that I made that move.
No, that sounds like it's been really, really good for you. And it's an area that's becoming more and more considered now as well, isn't it? That workplaces realise that there's a lot of pressures from outside of work as well as inside of work on people. Yes. And it's important to actually support teams so that they can be at their best.
Yes, definitely. I mean, COVID, I know it might feel that, that was years ago and it didn't, we've gone back to where we were, but not really in terms of mental health. That did actually make a major impact. I certainly remember having conversations with people who said to me, I'd never thought about my mental health before. And we were training through COVID online for a couple of years. Before being able to go back into offices. But yes, people were talking about it. They were talking about their mental health. They were noticing poor mental health in colleagues. So that really turned things around and changed not only the fact that it became something that people talk about more openly, but also something that businesses felt that they had to do a little bit more about. Unfortunately, I think it's gone a little bit quiet again, and that's maybe to do with economic, impacts at the moment. I don't think we've really quite got to the point where people think it's essential. It's more like we'd like to do this rather than thinking it's something essential to do.
Be done.
Yeah, so hopefully that will change over time.
Yeah, it'd be good to see it eventually coming alongside, like you would always consider training your team in the job that they do. Yeah. We send our team out on sort of marketing training and training days and things. It would be nice if this was something that was as ingrained in businesses as that is.
Absolutely. I mean, where it totally, if you think about... first aid, mental health first aid is probably even more important. You're more likely to encounter a colleague having a mental health crisis than probably a heart attack or stroke or the things we think about, or burns or cuts. So it's just so much more common. And yet it's not looked at in the same way. And the training's there. It's been around now in England for 17 years. So it's not new, but it's taken a while to get going. But certainly now, I think it's something like 1 in 25 adults will have had some mental health training, which is, really a big improvement. I think it shows things are moving along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of mental health training, how does it work when you're working with a business? Is it something that you go in and you work with the leadership team, or do you work with the entire team? Is it kind of a one-off day or repeated program? How do you work with businesses?
It varies. It very much depends on what the business would like. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about what the ideal is.
Yes, that would be good.
That's maybe the way to see it.
Yeah.
The ideal would be that a business recognises that they need to look after the well-being of their employees.
Yeah.
And as a preventative thing, they look at not only putting training in place, but policies and procedures as well. I mean, if you look at health and safety legislation, they already talk about having a stress awareness policy and putting policies and procedures in place for stress. Stress isn't a mental illness. We all have stress, but it's about recognising that stress can develop into something else.
Yeah. And
that is something that every business should have. Recently, menopause, there's been a change in legislation, and there now will be a responsibility to put things in place for people who are menopausal, to make sure that if they need adjustments, that happens.
It's a shame it has to become a legislation, isn't it?
It is. It's a shame, yes, that it's not something that
we
people
just
automatically.
do for each other. Yeah.
But that's the history. If you look back in history, things have always tended to around workplaces and safety, and sadly have had to come in place. Be moved forward through in the past unions, but now legislation more often, or the fact that there's more litigation as well. So it's been carrot rather than it's been stick rather than carrot. I'm getting my words the wrong way around. Yeah, but absolutely. So ideally, yes, it would be recognised by businesses, and it come from the top. It varies at the moment. Sometimes it will be that someone's actually pushing to, because maybe something's happened. I've been into businesses post a member of staff taking their own life.
Oh my goodness.
And that is not ideal for so many reasons. People are very upset. They spend time thinking about what could have been done differently. So ideally, to put preventative things in place is so much better. So that as part of that training is obviously really important, because if people don't have the awareness, they don't know where to start looking. They don't know how to look for signs of mental ill health in other people and in themselves actually as well. But it also needs policies and procedures, because there's a bit of overlap sometimes with things like sort of vulnerable adults and things like that, how you manage certain situations. So it's good, and also it means that people know what to do. They are not scratching their head each time anything happens. They know what to do, they know who to go to, and all the people who are involved know what to do if you've got the training and the policies in place. So that would be the ideal, that it would be, for me, if it would be preventative. There's so much evidence now that if putting these things in place actually saves money. Yeah. It saves obviously a lot of heartache when things go wrong. It improves retention if people feel well looked after, if they feel supported, if they know that they can talk to somebody at work if they've got problems in their life, be that in the workplace or outside the workplace. People feel valued, and with that are longer to stay in the job that they're in. Yeah. We do also know that Gen Z, I must get this right, are much more likely to be looking for jobs where that has been thought about. It's become something that they almost expect and see as part of the package, really. It's not just about pay, it's about having things in place that will support them if they need the support. and feeling valued at work, which is what we all want, isn't it?
We all want to feel that, don't we? Definitely.
Yes.
So does your training involve actually helping people understand, so if there is somebody that is struggling, will the training help them with methods to cope and that kind of thing, or is it all about recognising the signs and knowing where to go if you sort of thinking, I think that colleague might be struggling? Because sometimes it can be tempting to sort of talk to someone else and go, I think so-and-so seems to be struggling a little bit, but not actually know what to do beyond care. Yes,
absolutely. This is really why mental health first aid first came about. It was recognising that people are sometimes noticing things. They don't really know what they should be looking for, but they notice that maybe a member of staff is very quiet, they're not coping with their workload, maybe.
Joining in conversations like they used to, because sometimes people can use work almost as a way to escape. So the actual workload is still really good, but you can just tell they're not themselves.
Yes.
And then other than sort of caring about the fact that they just don't seem themselves, you need to know what to do next to actually help them, because caring but doing nothing won't actually help.
No, that's very true. Sometimes people are scared to say the wrong thing. I don't know if you've ever experienced that yourself, but that feeling of, might I make it worse? Should I say this?
Am I prying?
Am I prying? Because it's not, for some people, certainly, maybe older workers, it might feel like they're getting into an area that they shouldn't broach at work, because that's work, and this is about maybe something different that's outside of work. So it's boundaries, isn't it? People sometimes worry about. And so yes, definitely a big part of mental health first aid training is spending time learning how to approach a person that you're concerned about, and knowing what some of the things that you can say that would help to open up a conversation. And then the other big part of it is about how to listen, because we probably all think we're very good at listening, but actually sometimes we're not really taking it all in, because we're busy thinking about what do I say next, or what does that really mean, trying to sort of take sometimes a lot of information in. So it's a skill, listening, and so we spend quite a bit of time practicing, looking at case studies and thinking about what might be the particular elements of what's going on for that person, what some of the symptoms might be of poor mental health, and how to approach a person and have a meaningful conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So your training programs, you like you mentioned, you go into businesses, but you can also deliver them online, can't you? So
yes,
we're obviously Midlands based, but if there's people listening that think, I need to take a step here, because sometimes just the fact that you've done some mental health training, you're demonstrating to employees that it matters to you, might be enough to open up a conversation.
Yes.
So how do your programs differ between when you go into a business and when you deliver it online? Does it make a difference how they choose to work with you?
No, not at all. One of the things that came out of COVID is because I'm a trainer for Mental Health First Aid England. I'm one of their licensed trainers. So luckily they were really proactive. Otherwise we'd have had, probably 2.5 years with no training. And it was really important at that time to be getting training out there. So they put together a programme that could be used online. And since then it's been improved, because that was put together quite quickly, but it's now been improved. And basically we have the same training online as we do face-to-face. There's minimal changes, obviously, but with being able to use platforms where you can have breakout rooms, and people can still work in small groups, it actually works very, very well. And for some businesses, it just makes it more accessible, really. If you're a business that's international, you can still get people together without having to, I remember the days where people were flown in to come for a course. All that costs a lot of money, quite a lot of time as well to take people out of the workplace for all that. So it's just much more accessible, really. So that, businesses have the choice. They decide. I'm not the person that decides. They decide what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
I still do quite a lot of face-to-face, but equally online works just as well.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think it makes a difference, the size of business? Because I'm thinking, like, here at AlphaQuad, there's 7 of us in our team. So we all sit together and we talk quite a lot all the time, don't we? But I can imagine in a much larger company where you've got sort of 300-400 employees, it's a lot harder to actually notice if someone's behaving differently. So do you think, does the way that you train them adapt according to what kind of size of company that you're working with?
No, well, mostly not, because most of the training I deliver is mental health first aid, the suite of courses for adults. Yeah. So that's all set out. But I have to say they work really well. It doesn't really matter how big your company is, what you do for the day job. I mean, I like it when I like to go into businesses where I understand a bit about the business, and if I don't understand the business, then I like to have met with somebody and get an idea. So I know them. Yes, because things like the case studies, we have a choice, so you could make sure that you use case studies that are relevant to that business. And seem to fit for people. It sort of makes sense to them what we're talking about. But actually it works across all industries. So that's the benefit. That's one of the, I mean, it's just like first aid if you think about it. Yeah. And it is first aid. So we're not getting into, we're talking about how you support a person really. Yeah. Not somebody that's doing a particular role. But there are little things as a trainer I'm sure the trainers do the same, little things that you adapt and tweak just to fit. Maybe you focus a bit more on some particular areas, or maybe people ask more questions about certain things. Yeah. But it is the same course. However, I do also deliver bespoke training if there's something that somebody an organisation wants to delve in a bit deeper on. And I also deliver menopause awareness training, and recently I've just started looking at delivering financial wellness, well-being training as well, because those 2 areas are areas that I've really recognised it's still quite difficult for people. I mean, it was a life experience for me with the menopause that made me want to be able to go out and deliver training. Yeah. I had quite a bad experience with an employer, and when I recognised that there's training available now, I wanted to do that. I wanted to be part of that because I think it's so important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It seems like society's moved on recently. Well, in recent years, that mental health is talked about more and more, and menopause is talked about more and more. Yeah. Do you think that businesses are keeping up, or do you think there's still a bit of a gap in businesses not yet doing enough?
Yeah, there is a gap. So I think people know about it mostly now. It's not something that businesses don't know anything about. It's not new. Quite often when I go and meet new people, they have an idea that there is training there available. But for some, they for whatever reason don't think it's going to work for them, or they don't think it's necessary. And that is, something that I really feel, that needs quite a bit more work to sort of try and get across the fact that as I say, we talked about prevention. I would much rather that there's prevention than having to deal with the consequences. Yeah. And I think it's mental health is still one of those areas that, although people often know somebody who's got poor mental health, or maybe even a diagnosis, I think a lot of people think it won't be me. It's not going to be me. It's other people. When actually any of us can have poor mental health. Mental health is not a fixed state. We all have mental health, but it's fluid. It can change because life events happen, and our capacity to deal with those life events might not always be as good as we think it is. So this sort of idea that it's just going to be some people and it's not going to happen to my workforce is a little bit naive, really. Yeah. The stats on numbers of people who have poor mental health, for people in the workplace, it's 1 in 5 now employees will have poor mental health at any given time. That's quite high, isn't it?
That's in almost all businesses. There's
exactly.
going to be somebody, isn't there?
And you might not know about it. They might not come in and talk about it. You might not notice anything. But it's very likely in, like you say, most businesses, there is going to be somebody whose mental health isn't good. And it might not be good for a while, and then they might be fine again. But it's something that is going to happen, is what I'm trying to say. And it's knowing how to deal with it, rather than waiting for it to happen and then think, oh, we're not really quite sure what to do now.
Yeah. And if businesses understand what to look out for, they might actually be able to help an employee before it gets that bad.
Yes.
And that obviously has benefits not just for the employee that you've helped, but for the business as a whole, because then there'll be less time away. And then obviously the other thing is, if you have to take time away because of poor mental health, it's harder to come back.
Yes.
It brings more challenges than just that time that it's happening.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the impact on other workers if people are off sick for long periods of time, we know about, don't we? You're then having to pick up the slack, the rest of the team, and then they they start to experience severe stress as well. So, it just builds and builds, and then people start to leave. So rather than those things happen, to put some measures in place and actually be thinking about the fact that these things do happen in life. There's life events, we all have bereavements, we all, and stress isn't just about the negative things either. Planning weddings, planning major events is very
anything
stressful.
That overwhelms you, isn't it? And that can come from anywhere.
Yes, and we're all different as well.
Yeah.
So
what overwhelms one person, another one can manage.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's so true. That's recognising we're all individuals. Yeah.
So if there's anyone listening that thinks, I need to do something here, I'm a business owner or I'm a business leader or I'm just an employee and I want my business to be taking this seriously, what would you say to them? How do they take the next step to actually, should they contact you and look for training? How should they make a difference?
Well, yes, of course, contact me and I can help. I can talk through with the first thing I often do is talk about the business, what's going on, are there any major issues at the moment, or is this something that you've thought about and maybe already taken steps? So it's finding out where they are, and then together we can look at what's next. But if somebody's just really very vaguely thinking about what do I do, where do I start with this, what I would say is do some research, talk to your people, and they're all individuals. Talk to them whether you talk to them face to face, whether you get somebody in to do that so that it's somebody a bit more neutral so that people will be able to open up, or some sort of questionnaire or survey. But try and get as much information as you can from your people about what the needs are. Yeah. Because then you know what are the priorities. Much as I'm a trainer and I'd love everybody to spend money on training, that is only a part of it. It's an important part, but it's not necessarily the first place to start. You need to sort of work out what is needed, what type of training is needed. Sometimes the starting point is to make sure that managers are trained so that they're doing, as a part of their role, they're actually supporting individuals who have poor mental health. Yeah. So research, I would say. And then once you've got that data and you've got some ideas, you then know where to start. Yeah.
Let's just start with the conversation.
Yes, because what sometimes people do is they think, I want to do something. I want to do something about well-being. And you hear all the classic things like, buying fruit, buying people gym passes. Yeah. All great. I'm really not knocking those things. But that is not going to help somebody who's got a mental health, poor mental health. It's not necessarily going to help that person. And you might just be spending money on things that people don't really want. Maybe they want more flexible working hours. Maybe there's something that's going on that you don't know anything about that is going to make, and if you can look at what that is, that can make a big difference. But the disconnect that I hear between what managers say about businesses and their employees
Yeah.
can be quite startling sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you hear, oh, we're one big happy family, we all get on really well. And then you meet the employees sometimes, and, you know, sometimes in training I'll have a manager group and an employees group, and the things they say don't always match. So it's trying to bridge that gap, really, to find out what really is going on from all points of view.
Definitely. Well, it's been a really interesting conversation, so thanks ever so much for coming in and joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
A huge thank you to Liz for sharing her experience, her expertise, and her passion for improving mental health in the workplace. If today's conversation has inspired you to think differently about well-being in your organisation, or to take the first step towards creating real support for your team, we hope you'll explore the resources and training available.